Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are finishing up our discussion on the Murderbot Diaries book number 3, Rogue Protocol. I said that in the most awkward way possible. We're just getting back from vacation, so please excuse that clunky
We are also Rogue.
Yeah, we are going rogue with the podcast. We spent 3 days together in Portland, Oregon, visiting our number one fan. Ronnie reads regularly. And it's probably like the most time Laura and I have spent in the same place since college.
I mean, I visited you when you lived in Chicago a couple times.
That is true. So we have had time, but it was a fun time. We got to just chit chat and just hang out and
it was a lot of fun.
See the beauty of Portland and all its weirdness too.
And we met the Bechtel cast.
Our number one
Amazing.
podcast. And then, one of their guests was the host from You're Wrong About, Sarah Marshall. And Veronica and I are huge fans of hers, and we got put at her table during the second show.
Yeah.
Laura was like, they're not saying anything. And I was waiting till the end because I didn't want to be that creepy person who's like, I'm a huge fan of yours. And then you have to sit with her at this table for an entire show. So
all I'm saying is if I was somebody that people recognized and thought was cool, I would feel so honored if people were like, hey, I really like you, and said it right away.
Sarah Marshall was the sweetest human being, and she was like, oh, do you want a picture? She was very touched.
Sarah seems really cool.
So that was just really awesome. We were huge fans of that entire event. So happy we got to go. So happy I got to see Veronica, and Laura got to meet Veronica in person because it's been an entirely online friendship up until now. And we got to see Veronica's dogs. And they were awesome. And my dog.
And there's photographic evidence that I met the Bechtel cast too. So Hannah took a picture of me with them, and I totally fanned out. And this parasocial relationship feels less parasocial.
Step 1 to Laura's grandmaster plan to
step best 1 friend. Of me becoming best friends with Caitlin and Jamie.
I get it. It was amazing though. So we had the best time, and now we're
it was great. And we went to Powell's.
Yes, and we
Powell's books.
Really, really good about how many books we purchased.
Honestly, my husband cannot believe the self-control that and I was talking to another friend, and she knew of Powell's, and she was like, how many books did you get? And I was like, only 5 actually. I had a lot of self-control, but honestly, plane ride kind of limited us a little bit. So
we had gone in with you could ship it home, but I think both of us were like, we've been reasonable throughout the entire store, so we could fit these into a suitcase. And we've had them into my suitcase because Laura just had a backpack. And so it was I think when we realized we could make it happen that way, we were like, oh, it's time to be reasonable. And we both put back some books that weren't necessary for our happiness.
Right. But yeah, we did have a lot of self-control because honestly, even before we put back books, I only had 3 that I put back. So
yeah, I think I only put back 2. So we did good. It helped that I had also gone to open books in Chicago before, and I had found some of the books we had been searching for, the Jade. I got the Jade War #2, and all that jazz. So I think that helped a little bit, but overall, it was an amazing trip, and we loved
honestly,
it so much.
A thing that held me back was a lot of the books that I was looking for. They were pretty close to being regular price for used ones, even that I was I'm just not gonna buy a used book for $2 less than a brand new one.
Right, that's fair too. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I mean Powell's is amazing, but it's tricky.
It's so
with,
beautiful in there too.
Oh my God.
I mean, for book people, this is definitely one of those things you and I have talked many times about. People who read books love books about books, and people who love books and book places, bookstores. So just me being oh, it's so beautiful in there. There was somebody else on Instagram that I followed that was apparently there the same time as us.
Oh, wow.
And they posted a picture at Powell's, and they're like, this place is breathtaking. And I'm like, yeah, when the sun shines in and everything along that one side, it is really pretty in there.
I know. And it's just so fun. And you get a little lost in there because there's 2 different entrances. So you can become discombobulated when you're walking around the store and just wandering around. So it was beautiful. I loved every minute of it. And I was so glad that I got to share it with Laura.
Yeah.
And you and I did like a huge like road trip around Mount Hood and like,
Yeah, it was beautiful.
oh my gosh, it was so amazing. So it was just a good time.
Yeah, it was nice to see like the scenery in Portland and everything. And
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Uh-huh.
I totally get the whole Portland thing that, people
Laura
move
kept
out
being
there.
like,
And
I would a million times move here. Like I would
like,
definitely live here.
yeah, I'm not much of a city person, but that's a city that I'm like, I get it. I
Mhm.
really get it.
I get that. And now I'm back in my house for all of 2 days before I have to go on a work trip. And then down to Chicago again to watch a dog. So Hannah's just like in the midst of
Whirlwind.
being like this morning, I like was my boyfriend was over and I was like, let's go get breakfast because like I have food in my house, but it's like food that I don't trust where I'm like, I can't put this together to make a meal. And it's probably not going to be good when I get back. So what are you gonna do? But overall, yeah, it was just a really good time. But because we were on a trip during that time, Laura, what were you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, so I actually finished a book before we left that I hadn't talked about. I talked to you about it.
Mhm.
And I had talked about it on Instagram a little bit, but I read Seasons of Albadan by I'm gonna probably butcher one of the author names, Ilan Marche and
Yeah.
Christopher Warman.
Mhm.
So learned about them through one of our indie intermission showdown
Yeah.
voting. And so a lot of these books have been on my radar for a long time. And I was just like, you know what? One of my goals is to read more of these indie books. So I read that one and it is a mesmerizing book. It's very short, but it's a book that's like four short stories that are all kind of like intertwined. And you are told about the stories are all told in a different season in the land of Albadan, and very fantastical. You have an apprentice enchantress that you're following in one of the stories, and then you have a father whose daughter is dying in another story that you're following. Then you have a foreman who had a tragedy happen within his childhood that you learn about, and then the last one follows a mother whose baby has been very horribly burned and she's looking to seek help for her baby. So all of these stories are separate, but at the same time there's character overlap within them, and there's definitely a lot of fantasy elements and everything, but the writing is beautiful. And it's just a really mesmerizing story that once you start reading it, you're just like sucked in. And I would not say that this is like a happy feel good book by any means, but it's definitely one where you're just like, oh, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of twists, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I I enjoyed it so much that I immediately went on and pre-ordered the next book, so it was like waiting for me in my Kindle when it came out.
Oh,
And
good.
so I'm hoping to be able to start it soon. Because obviously we were on the trip and I just like on the way back, I had the best intentions of reading on the
Yeah.
plane, but I was just like so tired that the only thing my
Oh my
brain could do
gosh.
was watch Star Wars. So, and it could barely do that because it was so tired. But
Right.
this book is so good and very short. So if people are looking for a short read and are looking for something different and that is just almost lyrical and poetic in the way that it's written, highly recommend. And I think this is definitely a book too for people who don't necessarily like love fantasy, but can handle like fantasy elements and like
Right.
storytelling. This has a lot of like folklore feels to it, a lot of like fairy tale feels to it. So I really highly recommend this book to people. Pick it up. I'm excited to read the next one. The next one is not short. It's a
Okay.
big novel, but this is Seasons of Albadan. The first book in the series is a quick read, but very, very good. And then I mentioned that I watched Star Wars on the plane, but I finished watching Andor on Disney Plus. I love that show so much. So the series, I've just briefly mentioned that I just like the show a lot, but the series follows Cassian Andor, who we meet in the first time we meet him is in the Rogue One movie, and he's a captain for the Rebel Alliance in that movie. So this is a TV series that's a spin-off on that movie, and it gives context into how Cassian Andor became involved in the Rebel Alliance. And the actor that plays Cassian, Diego Luna, he's amazing. There's a lot of like bigger names in this, like Forrest Whitaker was in it too, and he's in Rogue One. But Forrest Whitaker was in it. Stellan Skarsgård, which when I first saw Stellan Skarsgård in this show, I was a little nervous because I feel like sometimes people don't know what to do with him, aka Thor, where he goes from a scientist to a man that's like running around in his underwear, and you're like, what? And but this was definitely a show where I was like,
you mean Stellar Skateboard? Because that is a huge joke on a How Did This Get Made podcast. Someone said something like, oh, I tried to put this in and then it autocorrected to Stellar Skateboard.
That's amazing.
So then there was a huge problem on Wikipedia where they had to lock Stellan Skarsgård's like Wikipedia page because people kept trying to change it to Stellar Skateboard.
That's amazing.
And Jason Mantzoukas was like, you guys are all nuts. Like, could you imagine this poor man who has no idea what a podcast is, having to have his entire Wikipedia locked because you guys kept changing it to Stellar Skateboards.
That's awesome.
So that's probably why they don't know what to do with Stellar Skateboard.
Here's the thing. He does a really wide variety of acting. Mm-hmm. Like he does very dramatic roles, but then he also does like goofy roles.
Right.
And like he was in the Mamma Mia movie, and he also does
that movie.
Yeah, and so that was definitely a goofy role for him. And then like he's done Thor, which we know that his role in that is just strange. So because I don't even understand why he had to be like that, you know, like running around his underwear type thing. Like that's just a little too much for the he doesn't know what's going on type trope that they were trying to play. But in Andor, he does an excellent job, and it really made me appreciate him more because and this is just me coming in and being like, oh great, it's the Thor guy, right? The Thor underwear guy. But this show, he did a really great job, and I was like, he's definitely someone that they just don't know what to do with at times, but he has really good acting chops, and I wish he would get more opportunities to do roles like this where he has to kind of play both sides and be sneaky and do a lot of political intrigue like he did in Andor, because he was so great at it. His role was so well done, and I was a big fan, and it really just made me appreciate Stellan Skarsgård more. But like Diego Luna was good. Andy Serkis was in it, and I'm a pretty big Andy Serkis fan, so like when he was in it, I was like, Andy Serkis. But he was really good too, and I'm hoping that we get a second season and that Andy Serkis is in it, because I was a little sad with what happened with his character. I won't give any spoilers, but I'm sad, and I want him to come into season 2. But it was a really good show. Cassian's the Andor family droid, B2, he was so cute, and I felt so sad for him at times, but hopefully he's involved in future seasons, and just a really good show. I can't say enough good things about this show. If you enjoy Star Wars, definitely watch it. If you're not even like the biggest Star Wars fan, I don't think that this is that heavily involved in Star Wars, because it's very much just like the beginning of the Rebel Alliance forming. So we don't have as many aliens in this one, which hopefully we get some more as we go along in future seasons, because that's a lot of what makes Star Wars kind of fun, is that there's all these different species interacting.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of political intrigue, a lot of the kind of like things that you don't get when you're watching the Star Wars movies. You get a lot of just like the action of them fighting, and I think Andor provided a lot of context of like how other people just like in their day-to-day lives were affected by the Empire. So it's a really good show, and please watch it, everyone.
Yeah, you may
now I get to watch The Mandalorian. So
yeah, you may have convinced me, because I did like Rogue One as a movie. I thought that was really good.
Rogue One was good.
Yeah, it was really good. It was just such a good movie. Like,
yeah, I've seen all the movies, but now I'm going through the shows. So
okay,
next up is Mandalorian, and then maybe I'll watch some of the animated stuff. Jury's still out.
Jury is still out for Laura on the animated stuff.
You know, I'm at a point in life where I'm very picky about like the animated things I want to watch. And
Right.
I can do like comedy stuff a little more easily than watching an animated show where they're like trying to be very serious. And Star Wars, I'm getting very much vibes that it's not going to be very comedic.
No, I
So
don't think that
just
the
the
Clone
material,
Wars.
it's not
Yeah,
going to be too funny.
that's fair.
But, and also, I just kind of like with the Clone Wars, it looks not as, I get it, that's an older show, but like to me, just like seeing some of the animation, I'm like, this doesn't look as great. But some of the other stuff, like Bad Batch, looks a little bit better.
Okay.
Jury's still out, but I'm gonna watch The
Interesting.
Mandalorian next.
Oh,
So,
good.
Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
So I would honestly say that I like read a ton, but also not a lot. Like I keep starting books and being unable to finish them right now.
Get it?
Sorry,
I
excuse
totally get
me.
that.
So like I'm having a little bit of issues. Like I got sent because I'm like an FSG, they're a specific publisher. They send me books before they get published, and one of them recently came out, and I've been reading it, The World and All That It Holds by Alexander Heman. I may have mentioned it on the podcast. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
15% into that book, and it's like really good, but a little bizarre in the way it's plotted, and I keep like kind of getting taken out of it. And so I'll go to read it, and then I'll be like, I'm not in the mood, and then I just won't read anything, which is not a great thing because I do want to read. I just don't feel like reading that book. And I can't decide if it's like I need to DNF this book or I need to power through, because like
I mean, I'm definitely someone though that'll like start several books and then just be like, I'm not feeling this one at the moment, and then I'll set it down, and I do go
right.
back to them.
Yeah, and that's
So,
kind of where I am with that one, where I've been putting it down and picking up other things in between.
mhm,
So I'm also doing a buddy read with Sandra of Story Darlings fame
mhm.
of A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha
Yeah.
Shannon. And guess what, guys? I love it so much more than I love Priory of the Orange Tree.
Hannah was like flying through this on the plane. Like I could see her just like flipping through the pages on her Kindle. I'm like, well, she's really getting
well,
into this.
well, also my Kindle is not very big, so there are many, many page flips, but
That's also true.
it's not a very big Kindle. Everyone makes fun of me for owning it because they're like, you might as well read on your phone. And I'm like, no, it is slightly bigger than your phone, and the battery lasts longer, and it is a
Yeah.
different feel to just reading it. But I do have a very tiny
And the
Kindle.
lighting's different too.
Yeah, I do have a very tiny Kindle that like, and I actually prefer that because like, well, that's kind of the point of like carrying a handheld device that I can sit and read on. But
and that's nice too because it fits easily in your pocket and stuff too. Because
yeah,
I was kind of jealous of that because like for me, I have the Kindle app on my phone, so I
right.
have a bigger Kindle and mine is a Kindle Fire because I like to watch TV and movies on it. So I went for a slightly different device, but yours is like nice because you can put it in your pocket at times versus me where I go to get mine out, I have to use my phone if I'm going to read on it.
And so that was nice to have. But I started it, and like Sandra and I both read Priory of the Orange Tree last year for Mega May. And I also did a review on Friends Talking Fantasy podcast with Dylan because he also read it for Mega May.
Yeah.
And we all kind of didn't love Priory. We were like, this is pretty dense. There's a lot of moving parts. Some of the characters we were the most interested in just didn't really hit for us, or like got taken off the page way too soon. Right. And like there was so much like clothing description. Oh my gosh, A Day of Fallen Night is completely different. It is like so freaking good so far. I'm a third of the way through. There's way more like subterfuge. There's way more intrigue. There's way more like people being evil in the background, like trying to do things, like having bad machinations. And it's supposed to be like, so Priory has like these worms that are more like dragons, but like dragons are seen as like good beings and worms are seen as evil. And at this point in the story, the worms have been like pretty much defeated beneath the earth. But an explosion happens like in the first third that like people think that they saw some worms escape, even though they're not supposed to be able to escape. And so it's like all these people who are like supposed to be protectors being like, the worms escaped, and people being like, no, they haven't been here for hundreds of years. We don't think so. And it's fascinating to read, and it's so good. And then like the dragons start kind of coming out of hiding because they're coming through, but like during this like intrigue in the East with like a princess, like finding out who she is and all this stuff. And it's like so much better than Priory, in my opinion. Like it's faster paced. The intrigue is like much better because it's much more in your face and less about like, oh, these like political machinations for 400 pages that could have been like a 20-page plot. Like they have it much better. and like you're getting all the history that you get in Priori, even though that this is a prequel and you could skip over some of that stuff. Like she does drop all the knowledge, so I do think you could read this without having Priori, because even during Priori I was like, I forget what happened next and what was this and what was this, and they do like hint at certain things, so it's not like ruining Priori, but it's giving you like the background material you need to understand A Day of Fallen Night.
Okay.
And my goodness, it's just so much better than Priori. Like it's so good. I love it so much. And I'm like, I saw a friend on Bookstagram who's currently reading Priori, like in preparation for this book coming out. And she's like, I don't understand why everyone loves it. And I'm like, yeah, give the prequel a chance though, because like it's so freaking good. And I feel like Samantha Shannon fixed a lot of the like plotting issues she had before. So I'm only a third of the way through because it is an 800-page novel.
Okay.
But I'm reading that one currently. And I was reading it last night and I fell asleep because I was so tired coming back from our
Sure.
But for watching, Laura and I watched Teen Beach Movie, and we will likely be doing a Patreon episode on it.
I mean, it's a definite for me, but
yeah,
I'll do one without Hannah if she doesn't.
It's gonna be our February Patreon episode. So sign up for our Patreon if you want a bonus episode of Laura and I doing a deep dive into the Disney Channel original movie, Teen Beach Movie, which was a fun ass time.
My new favorite actor.
I had seen the movie before, but watching it with Veronica and Laura was such a goddamn treat, guys. Like I cannot express like how much fun I had watching Teen Beach Movie with you guys. And feeling validated because the character Laura is talking about is like, he knows exactly what movie he's in a way I cannot describe. And then you watch him and you're like, oh yeah, he knows. So that was fun. But I also watched Wednesday on Netflix.
Yay!
So Wednesday, spoilers, because Laura and I have both watched it. So jump like 5 minutes if you don't want to hear that. But I enjoyed it very much. I didn't love the ending because it felt a little like rushed, and it felt a little bit like the TV show wanted too much to be like, ooh, some subterfuge. And I told this to Laura where I was like, honestly, they've made it so muddled. It's not really going to be a surprise either way. It's just like they're building up totally to make it one of two people. And that's fine. But like, I'm not going to be shocked either way, but I also don't know because they're making it they're putting too much weight on these two people to one of them be the bad guy. And then when I found out who it was, I was like, I guess like, it just didn't seem to match up quite as well. And
I think they thought they were like going to do something kind of shocking. And then it was kind of like, oh, maybe.
Well, and I also didn't love it because I was like, why would you do that with that particular character? Because like the whole point of them is one thing and you're making it about the other, you know, like it just didn't make sense. And then like I knew okay, definitely spoilers here, but I knew that like when the evil pilgrim came back, like he wasn't going to like the woman who brought him back because of patriarchy and sexism. And like they made a joke about it, and instead of making it interesting, she's like, I guess you never meet your heroes. And I'm like, really? This wouldn't piss you off? Are you
right?
Like no, like that's not how this would work. And so I hated that. I did enjoy something that did shock me was when you found out who the evil monster was, that the evil monster knew that had been going on, because I thought it was going to be like I had no idea what was going on. This isn't me. But the fact that like he was like, oh yeah, and then I started to like it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, much more
that's a little twisted.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's much more twisted than I was expecting, especially with the way that like they had used that character. But certain things just like did not shock me at all.
Sure.
Because I even asked you, I was like, is the monster this person? And I was like, and I was one episode away, and you were like, you're so close, Hannah.
It's easy to call, but
yeah, but it was very enjoyable. I enjoyed the season. I really liked what they did with like the siren character. I thought she was fascinating. I really liked her. I don't know how much I loved the whole like wolfing out plot line. Like that made very little sense to me.
Here's my thing. Do you think like people get a little too caught up in werewolves and vampires anymore?
Yes.
Where they like feel the need to bring them into every story. And in this story, did we need to have like
But we did
that
for the
be like a central plot of Enid's
yeah.
character. Like, I don't know if, because you're talking about Enid, right?
Yeah.
I don't
And
know if that like needed to be a thing. And also to me, it very much gave me like puberty vibes. And I
yeah,
was just like, is this necessary? I don't know. I
it
felt like
gave
there was
me
more to Enid's
puberty
character than being
well,
like, she hasn't yet blossomed
and then
in
they tried
order
to
to
make
be
it
able
this
to like, I don't know.
weird like sexual thing of like being quote
Yeah.
unquote normal and going to a conversion camp. I was like, well,
Yeah.
that didn't
I
need to
didn't
happen.
like that.
Like that didn't need to happen, especially when like there is a historical discussion of what conversion camps are and how
Right.
harmful they are. So like why did the parents in the wonderful year of 2022 think that that's appropriate for like just because
Yeah.
she's a werewolf a conversion therapy camp is still appropriate? I didn't understand that. I liked what they were doing with the themes of her like being a lone wolf quote unquote and not needing the support of like family
Mhm.
and make building your own community, but then at the end it just got taken away because it's like, oh, don't worry, she still
Well,
became a werewolf. Like it
I was going to say they kind of,
reinforces.
this is something that shows do too often, which is they bring in something that could be interesting and then they just like resolve it too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I had this issue with Brooklyn Nine-Nine when Jake and Amy were having infertility struggles.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is great that we're highlighting this. But then literally in the next episode, they get pregnant. And it's like, I kind of would appreciate it if they would have done it longer. Like any kind of highlighting of that is great. But we need more of it because then people kind of just like, oh, well, you know what? Just wait 30 minutes and you'll be pregnant. And it's like, that doesn't happen. So even like things like this, it's like the resolving of an issue that is interesting or more connected to like a real life thing. It happens too soon. Like stretch it out a little longer. Like they could have easily made it a thing that Enid did not become a wolf right away,
Right. Or ever. Like she can still have like certain powers where
Right.
it's like, well, these are still like it still makes me special and all this stuff. And then they just didn't. They just like took it away immediately. And I was like, why would you build up this awesome like discussion if you're going to do nothing with it kind of thing?
Right.
Well, and I will say like one good thing for infertility storylines is Sex in the City. One of the characters who wants to be a mother the most deals with infertility, and she in the actual seasons of the show never has a natural child, but in the series finale finds out that they were on the wait list to adopt and that they found a baby to adopt, and like that is the end of her storyline. And I do appreciate that one because it goes through all the infertility processes and it goes through the grief of realizing you're never going to be able to like birth your own child and that you need to go down a different path. And then in the movie she does get pregnant, which is neither here nor there. The TV show is much better, but the actual TV show also shows like the breakup of her marriage over children because he did not want to adopt ever. Like his choice was have a natural baby or no. And her choice was, no, I'm going to be a mother no matter what. And it ends up ruining their marriage. And then she finds a husband who's incredibly supportive and understands. And like, she still grieves the process of like, feeling like it's her fault, even though it's not, And so I will say that is an excellent done. And like, she also does with the grief of like, one of her friends has an unwanted pregnancy during that time. And she gets incredibly upset with the friend because the friend in the episode decides to terminate it, ends up not terminating it, but they have like a discussion where she's upset with her because she's like, you're not even going to consider keeping it. And the friend's like, you need to support me right now. And she is like, I want to support you. And I'm really angry with you for making this decision. And like goes through a process of like where she can't speak with the friend, but the friend like they run into each other on a street corner and the friend is like, are you going to avoid me for the rest of our lives? And she's like, no, I just can't talk to you right now. And the friend like walks behind her to make sure she gets home because she knows she's upset. And it's like, oh, this is a wonderful like discussion of like what it means to be friends when you're struggling with these issues and what it means to like be there for someone even when they're angry at you. And I thought that like Sex in the City did an excellent job at that. Not to bring up Sex in the City, I've been bringing it up so often, but you brought up infertility and it made me think of the Charlotte storyline.
I wasn't trying to like get into a big discussion on infertility, but I was more so just trying to get into how TV shows will bring up an issue that I think is interesting or needs to be expanded upon more, and they think they're doing something and it's like, you didn't handle this well because you resolved the issue so quickly. And before we get totally off the infertility thing, like in Brooklyn Nine-Nine specifically, I feel like Charles' infertility story resonates with me
Yes.
so much more than Jake and Amy's,
Mm-hmm.
because Charles, he has a longer struggle too, like trying to find different paths to, which
Mm-hmm.
they definitely heavily made it satirical, the whole situation with him
Right.
being infertile, which is not great because a lot of times it's just unexplained. People don't know why. And
Right.
but for his storyline to like be longer, have several episodes where they're trying, where they're looking at different avenues of things that they can do, that to me was a little bit better than Jake and Amy's, where it was just like, we're really struggling, and then like next episode, never mind, it
Right.
happened. I know it's a time jump also, but still, when you're watching it, there's no time jump if you are binge watching a show. But yeah, I think I was more so getting into just using that as an example of how like shows will bring up something interesting and then they just kind of resolve it immediately, and it's like, oh well, you kind
Right.
of just made this a thing. And Enid's character is a really cool character, honestly, and she's so different than other characters that you'd see in this kind of show.
Right.
And it would have been interesting, I think, if you would
Mm-hmm.
have had all these other characters who had a power and were able to do this or that or the other. And then Enid is kind of just like, yeah, well, I have all these other things that make me cool and I still belong here and I'm a
Right.
unique person and I shouldn't like be
Well,
excluded from the academy just because I'm not exactly like everyone else.
well, and also like I didn't always get the storyline of like I don't love the storyline of like the bullies are just misunderstood. So like
Mm-hmm,
you find
mm-hmm.
out in it that like Wednesday's love interest like didn't assault one of the other characters, but like kind of like ruined something he had been working incredibly hard on. And it's
Mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm.
written off as like, well, you could have just told me. I don't like that guy anyway. And it's like, okay, but his is also coming from a place of prejudice and hatred. And like,
Right.
yeah, he says he fixed it, but like it was literally last year and we're not dealing with like the trauma that involves. And then you
Right.
have the mayor's son who literally like tries to attack Wednesday with two
Mm-hmm,
other guys and then ruins a school dance and does all this like really crappy stuff. And then he's like
mm-hmm.
later seen as a potential love interest for like two of the characters. And it's
Sure.
like all he has to learn is that they're just like him. And I'm like, can we not have storylines anymore where you have like bigoted people learn that someone else is a human and then they
Right. Where it's like,
deserve
oh
love?
wow.
Yeah, like I get really sick of that as a storyline. And like that's also a huge trend in media that's like the bully of gay students is always gay. Like that was a
Yeah.
huge discussion around like the show I love, Sex Education, where they're like
Or
it is in a
Glee.
Glee and like they
Glee
do it
was
all
famous for that storyline.
exactly. And they like all do these storylines where it's like, don't worry, you can still like him. He's just gay and he hates himself. He doesn't hate you. And it's like, nope.
Glee was like especially problematic with their portrayal of it because then
Mhm.
didn't so it was like Kurt and Blaine were together and then didn't Blaine end up dating the bully?
Yep.
That was bizarre.
And like that kid was like dangerous enough to make Kurt lose
Yeah.
schools. And like I'm not saying like I understand that teenagers are teenagers and sometimes they make mistakes and sometimes they need the ability to grow and be forgiven.
Sure.
My thing is that it happened like it's like you said in TV shows they want to like put a button on it far
Yeah.
too quickly. And also like just because someone grew doesn't mean that the person that they harmed should be the ones to forgive them.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
sometimes you should let the growth happen with new people. It doesn't need to be the person
Mm-hmm.
who was harmed by that part. Like I think we don't talk enough about like how if you are harmed by someone, you have every right not to forgive them or
Right.
want them in your life. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
people that I have cut out of my life where I'm like, no, having you in my life is harmful to me. And I
Sure.
hope you've moved on from the situation and you are a better person.
Right.
But I don't need to be a part of that better person.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't think that because you're dealing with a TV show, which is a closed off world where like someone still needs to be a character on the show because they pay them to be. But
Right.
like I think like sometimes it's more effective to almost do the like we're gonna shove you off to the side and bring you back. Like I actually saw a TikTok recently that was about like a character who's on 5 different episodes of Angel and Buffy together, but like
Okay.
you see her character arc throughout all of them, and she like starts off as like a person in a cult and ends up as like a person who's helping youth, like the youths who are unhoused and dealing with
Youths.
trauma, youths, um, but like, and someone says like, if you knew the world was ending today, would you still have done all this? And she was like, yeah, and I would continue doing exactly what I'm doing right now because I know I'm helping others. And it's like, sometimes I think having that character like not interact with the people they harm, like if it was a harmful character, and then you find out later, like just off screen, they're like, did you hear that like now they do this? And it's like, well, I'm glad they decided to help someone else. Like, and I think that could sometimes be a more effective tale than like, this mayor's son tried to beat up on a bunch of them, but don't worry, he starts liking two of them, so now he's changed. Like, I don't love that as a motif.
Agreed. Have you learned the Wednesday dance yet?
I have not. Have you?
I did try it. I mean, I've been watching YouTube videos to try and learn it, and I'm just a bad dancer, so there's that goes into play. But I'm one of those people. So I am a bad dancer, but I do actually enjoy dancing, and I have gotten more comfortable with it now. Like as a child, like was in a bunch of musicals and everything, and it was just kind of like I was one of those kids that was like, yeah, she's a really good singer, but terrible dancer. And so I was one
put
of those
her in the back.
Kind of, yeah. And it was one of those things I feel like as a kid, I was just kind of like very aware that I was like not as good of a dancer as the other people. And so like as I got into like high school and then college, I was just kind of like very much insecure about like, oh, I do not want to like dance in a crowded place because people will notice that I'm a bad dancer, and I am. Right. But now as an adult, I feel like I don't care. So like if I go to a wedding or a party or something and there's music, I feel very comfortable with dancing now. And that's something that I'm like proud of myself because I'm like, I enjoy doing it, even though it's not something that I'm that good at. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't have to be good at everything. You can just enjoy things because they're fun. And
the amount of times people are looking at you thinking like, oh my God, she's such a bad dancer. Never. Like at a wedding, never.
Exactly.
So I enjoy dancing, and I'm not the greatest dancer ever. I have good rhythm, and that's about it. I can shake my hips on the beat. Yay. Sure. But yeah, I've not learned the Wednesday dance yet, but I did like I forget her name, but Jenna Ortega's. I loved her acting. I thought she did a very good
she was
job.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, they cast this very well, I think, for her, and actually the whole Addams family I thought was cast very well, because I actually really loved Fred Armisen as Uncle Fester.
I don't know if I loved him as Uncle Fester, but
I thought it was different, and I really liked that. But I think everybody just is so enamored with Christopher Lloyd's portrayal in the movie that it's hard to like get past. And I get that because Christopher Lloyd was amazing. I also love Christopher Lloyd, but I thought that Fred Armisen was so different and still like quirky and weird like Uncle Fester could be, and I'm like, I kind of dig this portrayal as well.
I did, and I enjoyed that. Like, it was one of the only times Jenna Ortega decided to have Wednesday Addams smile. Was around Uncle Fester, and I did greatly enjoy that. I thought that was an awesome way to act, and I thought she did a wonderful job with that. So I will give her props for that for sure. I didn't realize that she played young Jane Villanueva on Jane the Virgin.
Yes, and she was in You.
Yes, she was. She was good in You.
Yep. She's been in a lot of stuff, and I watched an interview of her, and she was saying something about she's been in a lot of horror type movies.
Yeah,
and I can't remember if it was Jimmy Fallon or who it was that was interviewing her. Was like, "Oh, really? You have?" And she was like, "It's just my face. I don't know why. It's just my face that I'm easily cast in that type of thing."
That's very true.
I get it.
I do love like the jokes they had about Morticia and Gomez. I thought that was hilarious. I love that the guy who played young Gomez seemed taller, and it's like, did he shrink?
I love Luis Guzman though.
What happened? Just cast like a taller man, and we're like, we're not gonna address it.
Nobody mentioned it. No
one's gonna notice. I did think that was hysterical. But yeah, that was just lots of good stuff. I enjoyed the TV show. Hope it gets a season 2.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, because it's like still trending on Netflix. It's like in their top 10.
That's not a guarantee. Bring back Julie and the Phantoms.
Bring back Julie and the
Phantoms. But apparently the series has been renewed for a second season.
I would assume Wednesday is going to get a second season. It's been very popular. I mean, it's one of those shows that I feel like you hear of certain shows on Netflix that like get huge viewership, and then you hear about them like on a bigger level, like The Witcher and Bridgerton.
Right.
And now Wednesday is kind of at that level too, where it's like, oh yeah, these are definitely shows that Stranger Things that Netflix is gonna like make a thing out of.
Right. No, I definitely liked it. And I actually listened to one of the guy who played her love interest.
Yeah.
He was on Keep It, which is one of my favorite podcasts.
Okay.
And he was talking about how they like for the Wednesday dance, she like Jenna Ortega didn't they had like a choreographer trying to hunt her down to like teach her the moves that they had approved of. And Jenna Ortega had choreographed it herself. So she was like too scared to admit that. So she was just hiding from the choreographer.
Well, she did that whole thing with COVID.
Yeah, I know. And so
she had COVID while she was doing it. And
I didn't realize she had COVID.
Yes. And so she was not feeling well, and they had like basically like one take that they did this in. And yeah, so and she had like come up with the dance on her own and everything. So totally amazing.
And he talked about like dancing with her and like all that amazing stuff, and he was really impressed. I didn't realize this, but he's queer. He is married to a man.
Oh, okay.
So I liked him as an actor, so I can't wait to see what more he's in, because he was fun. And so yeah, but that is what I was reading, watching, and or enjoying. But with that, should we get in to Rogue Protocol?
And what did you think of this book, like overall?
I thought it was like such a change in, like it almost felt like this book was like low-key horror thriller, when the other ones just seem more of like security, like action, like that, like with low levels of mystery in the other two. This felt much more horror elements that I was like really shocked that Martha Wells pulled out in a third book.
Honestly, going into it, I was kind of expecting like more of the same type of thing. And I was very shocked that it was like this shift into like, nope, we're ramping things up and here you go. So I was also surprised.
I know, it was very, very interesting. And I really liked that she was able to do this shift so seamlessly, because it kind of lets you know that I think it's some books like more of the same is what's expected, a la like our Wheel of Time books, where it's like it's always action, it's always fantasy. And you and I were shocked when like there would be elements of like Rand is off the page for an entire book. And that only happened in like one book throughout the series. And then I know, darn it, because it was such an amazing thing.
Some of the other books.
And like I think sometimes playing with genre allows you to embrace certain elements of your character that you haven't before. So I think with this, like it was really impressive that it was like, okay, we're not going to just do more of the same. Murderbot is the central character. So putting Murderbot into different situations is incredibly appropriate. And like doing that can help it grow in ways that you wouldn't expect. So like in other books she's been, or like Wells has done such a great job of like showing Murderbot grow through like frustration and like wanting to be a Murderbot, wanting to be a sec unit overall, and then like finding ways that it fails and like blaming itself and having a lot of introspection. But here it's often like put into more of a security based thing, where it's like kind of fighting for its life. It's just on its heels, danger all the time. But because of that, it's allowed to have certain emotions like frustration and jealousy when it comes to Mickey, that I don't think I think would have been more jokey in the previous novels. But because the stakes in this book are different, it feels a little bit like different. Like it feels a little bit sadder and a little bit like more retrospective, I guess, maybe. But I loved that portion of it.
I think that something I noticed about this novel, you mentioned like feelings of jealousy and things like that related to Mickey. I also noticed Murderbot gets a little more understanding, because we've mentioned before how Murderbot definitely has main character energy and is just like, I'm the only one who is like this. And it's learning that no, I'm not the only one like this. There's other bots that have sentience. There's other bots that are valuable and have emotions and have a unique experience that I don't understand, and I have to be a little more willing to try and understand them.
Well, and I think that also goes to like it's so interesting seeing Murderbot deal with Mickey because
Mm-hmm.
we've talked a lot about this. Like, Murderbot isn't sure that it should have value just by existing. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
dealt with this in the first two books of like, I want a life where I don't have to do anything else. I want to sit and watch my TV and that's it. And then it's like, isn't that valuable? Why do I have to have learning? Why do I have to do these things
Right.
in order to have any level of agency? That's not agency, that is still ownership. And Murderbot meets Mickey, and it learns throughout the entire course of the book that Mickey has value to a human because the
Mm-hmm.
human loves Mickey and appreciates
Yeah.
Mickey and like would sacrifice itself or put herself in more danger to save Mickey. And I think to
Mm-hmm.
Murderbot, that is like incredibly gut wrenching because it's learning that like maybe there are humans or other beings out there that would see value in Murderbot in a way that it doesn't fully understand.
Right. Mickey's a good foil to Murderbot
Mm-hmm.
because Mickey has such good relationships with humans and trusts them so much and would do things for them. And it kind of brings Murderbot to a place where Murderbot's like, maybe I could be seen as something that's
Mm-hmm.
not just like a murder bot,
Yeah.
that's not just a big killer, that
Yeah.
I could be something that is valuable to people and worth respect and not
Mm-hmm.
being like somebody's pet.
Yeah. Well, in Murderbot, often like I have the part tabbed here when Donna Benna is talking to Mickey and she's like, we have to remember we see you as one of the family, but other security people don't see it that way. And like you don't actually have a ton of experience with humans, and like that's probably why they didn't want you to touch their things. And like
Right.
Murderbot is kind of flabbergasted because, well, it's misinterpreting the situation as like Mickey's gonna tell on me instead of like, oh, Mickey had a question, didn't understand, and didn't just take things at face value that humans
Mm-hmm.
are stupid or humans don't understand them or like
Right.
Murderbot is like kind of the pessimistic version of it where it's like this is
Yeah.
just the way the world works and you got to get
Right.
over it and it's up to you. And Mickey is like, why would they act that way? I'm so kind. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to help. I offered help. Isn't that enough? And like the fact that Mickey is inherently curious about that, I think like really
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It's like a perfect foil to Murderbot who doesn't want to ask any questions and wants to like just
Mm-hmm.
understand.
Right. I also just love the relationship between Mickey and Donna Benna because throughout we have very cynical Murderbot who's just like, Mickey doesn't even have any like ability to any free will.
Yeah.
Mickey can't make any choices, so I have to be very careful with what I'm saying because Mickey's going to just go back and repeat everything to Donna Benna because it's just going to do that because it's programmed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, when you learn that Donna Benna legitimately considers Mickey a friend
Mm-hmm.
and that Mickey was right in trusting Donna Benna and like considering Donna Benna a friend, it's almost crushing
Yeah.
to know that Mickey actually was given free will, was not programmed to be
Mm-hmm.
like this, and that the emotions and questions and feelings that Mickey has are just because it has formed genuine and
Mm-hmm.
strong connections with people. And so I think that's actually a really good way to look at things when you are coming in and because as readers too, when we're coming in just from Murderbot's point of view, we automatically assume, that every person is going to just want to treat any kind of bot with like no dignity at all.
Right.
So it's really an interesting thing to bring into this book.
Well, and it does make you wonder, like, we don't get to see a ton of Donna Benna and Mickey, where it's like, does
Mm-hmm.
Mickey have these things where like Donna Benna is seen as its protector, quote unquote,
Sure.
but
Sure.
like Donna Benna doesn't see itself this way. Like, I think it's always interesting to like look into those things more because that's
Sure.
I think we might be looking into that more and more in books to come now that Murderbot is going back to Dr. Mensa and seeing
Mm-hmm.
like, well, can you understand that like in the world you're living in, Dr. Mensa may have to give the like have the title of protector but still see you as your own independent being,
Right.
or like, and that's like, that is very much discounting the systemic problem of saying that these units and, you know, things that have been shown to have lots of feelings and minds of their own have to have protectors, but not on a societal level, but on the personal level can like, you understand that like you may have that term, but it may not be put in place. And I don't think it was put in place with Donna Benna and Mickey, because as soon as Mickey's like overall purpose put it in danger, Donna Benna was like, nope, get rid of it. I don't want it on you. I don't want that anywhere near you. Like, I don't think that that's okay. You should save yourself first. Like, and that became important to Donna Benna. And I think that that'll be interesting to see in future novels what Wells does with that.
Oh, for sure. I also liked many of the comparisons to art and how Murderbot kind of had some self-reflection of like, oh gosh, is this how art felt about me? I was just an absolute idiot. And I love a lot of the interactions that Mickey and Murderbot have just like between the two of them. I love the moment where Mickey's like, no, don't always say
that's yes silly. I've just been telling you yes because I wanted to. I also it's also very funny because like Murderbot has such an energy to it where it's like, well, I'm programmed to do this. I'm just telling people what I need to do. And that's it. But it doesn't
Murderbot is so personally invested though.
Right.
At the same time where it's like, I'm programmed to tell people to do this, but then when like something doesn't go the way that it like wants it to, it's like, why would you say that? That's not how you do that. Humans are so dumb. They're so bad at security.
And it talks about like, well, if I had my governor module, I wouldn't have these feelings. And it's like, I think you probably would. I think it would just be harder to override.
Yeah.
And like, you're not giving yourself enough credit. And like, that's interesting because when faced with that, like Murderbot doesn't always give the most credit to things. So like when the bot is like, objective, we will tear you apart, and like calls one of the bots a pet bot. And like, oh. And it's like, oh no. It's just telling me what it's going to do. And it's like Murderbot's afraid in that moment. So it has to logic its way into the way the world works, and it has to make it into a black and white scenario. And it can't just have it be like, no, Murderbot, that bot is being kind of a dick to you and like is threatening you. And like you don't want to admit that like that's scary. So you have to be like, no. This is incredibly fine. And that's the same with like art, where it's like, oh my God, art was so much smarter than me at so many things. It was looking at me the way I look at Mickey. And like there is a self-awareness about Murderbot where it is always growing, but then it always has this logical gap where it like isn't quite there yet.
Especially with matters concerning itself too, because there are a lot of times when Murderbot makes a comment about like, I don't really care about this or that, and it's like, you absolutely care. You care the most. Why are you so involved? If you didn't care, why are you doing this stuff? Like if you didn't care about humans, why are you like getting yourself involved again with another group of humans? Like you could easily, Murderbot has the capability to just have dodged that whole situation, went in and found the info and got out of there. I feel like without having to get involved with these people, like they could have just died, honestly. And Murderbot could have just avoided all of that. But Murderbot does care. So there's definitely this gap where Murderbot thinks that it doesn't care about things or doesn't need to be involved in things, but it totally does.
Well, and this is kind of a half-baked thought, so like don't hold me to it, but we have to discuss like obviously lots of people in the neurodivergent community have like strong feelings about Murderbot because they feel themselves seen in Murderbot, and but also with the caveat that like you shouldn't have neurodivergent people only being bots and androids and all that stuff. So with that caveat, but there is something to be said that a lot of people who are neurodivergent oftentimes don't think that they have specific feelings because they don't feel them in the way that other people may feel them. So like, because they don't feel happiness with smiles, like they could maybe be taught that like they don't feel happiness, you know?
Sure.
Or like they don't communicate well. And like that is a discussion where like people who are called neurotypical, I don't like that term, we both don't like that term, often use certain ways to like say that they are loved. They use words, they use actions, they use like certain things that like can't be felt or aren't comfortable for a neurodivergent person. And so they may misinterpret that and be like, oh, maybe I don't feel that, but like they do. And so I think sometimes that's what it is with Murderbot, where Murderbot associates those feelings and actions with the humans surrounding it. instead of understanding that like, hey, I do have those feelings. I just don't interpret them, or they aren't seen the way that humans feel. And that's something that like art already understands, because art's like, I want to watch you have this reaction because I sometimes can misinterpret humans doing that. And I want to know what someone who is similar to me looks and feels like when they're watching something, so I can understand the feelings and emotions that are going into this. And it's like Murderbot has not learned that yet, even though like it's slowly learning that, where it's like, oh my God, I'm having this like deep seated like jealousy emotion. And like, oh my God, I'm having this feeling of like, I can't be around these people because I just failed them because they're like beloved bot dies. But at the same time, Murderbot like has this huge indignation when Willem, or what's the name? Wilkin is like, it's not personal. And Murderbot was like, that was deeply personal. It's
you
absolutely
had to bring it
personal.
up. Like,
yes. I'm like, that's the thing, is
came
like,
in and shot.
But Murderbot forgets that like when it comes to bots and they're like, objective, we will kill you. And the Murderbot's like, it's just saying what it wants to say. And I'm like, no, that's deeply personal. Like, that is a bot being personal. It's just not personal the way you interpret human personableness to your personableness. And like, it's so interesting to see that happen on the page, where like you get to see the hypocrisy of Murderbot so often that Murderbot doesn't even realize it has. So
it's definitely an interesting way to look at like how people express themselves differently, and how, like you were saying, like one person saying something can come off in a totally different way or mean something totally different to someone else. I did listen to an interview which was from several years ago, and the interviewer had asked Martha Wells if she had intended to represent neurodivergency with Murderbot, and she said no. But she said, and so they kind of like pushed like what brought about this Murderbot, and she said that she grew up as a lonely child, and that was kind of something that influenced her to write Murderbot, is this like feeling of loneliness. And I would be curious to, if we could ever be so blessed to talk to Martha Wells, I would be curious to learn more about how Murderbot kind of evolved, and how the depiction of Murderbot evolved from the first book to the second book to the third book, and how the character has grown, and how Martha felt connected to this character. Because the interview that I was listening to, I think, was specifically about All Systems Red. And I just thought that feeling of loneliness was so interesting, because when you are lonely, you're very much in your head, in your own space. And even though you're alone and want to be with other people, there's very much a sense of, no one understands me, nobody likes me, nobody will ever understand what I want to do, that kind of thing. So I get a lot of those themes too from Murderbot being lonely, now that I have a little more context as to that being a thing.
Well, like, loneliness is also something where if you're lonely and or depressed, because I guess someone who has battled depression their entire life, I can tell you that it's also incredibly difficult to make connections with people during that time. Like, because you feel like the loneliness or the depression is almost your fault. So like, why would you want to be around other people? Because they like may feel it or may know something about you that you don't quite understand in yourself at that moment, because you're not mentally healthy enough to do it. And it's like, it is incredibly exposing. So I think that also makes more sense when it comes to like Mickey or Art, where like Murderbot isn't quite ready to open itself up to them and like let itself be vulnerable to them, because
or what things about them may mean about itself. Even going just a little bit like a step back, not even just like opening up to them, but even opening up within itself and realizing like, oh, this could mean something about me.
Well, and that's also like the whole, especially like loneliness or depression or like anything that any battle with like similar issues, that can also mean like when you feel a certain way, you become incredibly vulnerable in ways you couldn't even quite possibly describe. And so when Murderbot like sees itself walking not like a normal human, and it doesn't want to be a human by any means, but it's like, I thought I was covering up well, and now that means I have to change myself to be safe in a situation, and I don't want to change myself. I'm perfectly fine. Like, where Art is sitting there being like, obviously you need to change yourself. Like, this is the simplest answer. And Murderbot is like,
right.
That's not an easy answer for me. That's incredibly difficult and vulnerable to like open myself up to this and to admit that like something might have to change me to make me safer. And it's just like, God, that's got to be incredibly difficult to hear. Like, that's not fun and not good. And I don't think like, I think Martha Wells does a fantastic job kind of doing a deeper assessment into that. And I really like that she kind of took this place of vulnerability of like loneliness and made it her own.
Right. For sure. Yeah. And overall, like this book is just another, a little bit more of the same where we have Murderbot in this, I'm going to quote Kara's reviews, an essential paradox of insisting that it doesn't want to be human, but sets itself apart from its humanity, but keeps ending up in situations where it poses as a human.
Right.
or is humanized. So yeah, I think that there's just a lot of different things that you can talk about, but overall that's kind of the main theme that we get at here is that Murderbot insists continually, I'm not human, I don't want to be human, and yet its actions prove otherwise.
Right. So. It's interesting. I can't wait to find out more about Murderbot. I'm really fascinated because like we've had a couple of moments where Murderbot will touch on like humans who are treated like second-class citizens.
Yeah.
Like in this book,
we had that mentioned in this book
where it talks about like labor installations on some like shit show world, it's called.
Yeah. It's like at least I didn't have to pay to.
Right. And it says that like they said that using contracts was slavery, but at least I hadn't had to pay the company for my repair, maintenance, ammo, and armor. Of course, nobody had asked me if I wanted to be a sec unit, but that's a whole different metaphor. Note to self, look up definition of metaphor is.
Look up what a metaphor is.
That I do feel like we're getting into like so many difficult structures of like dehumanization, because like exactly what that review says, like Murderbot says it doesn't want to be human, but yet it is dehumanized in a way that's like very unique, and it's seen as like a certain way to all these beings, and it can't be trusted, and it has to act like it's not sentient just to put others at ease, and like all of these things are very incredibly well done in such short books. Like
and moving forward, we know for a fact now that Grey Chris is trying to cover its tracks and cover up illegal activity, and Murderbot is going back to Dr. Mensa.
Yes, we get to see what happens in the next book with Dr. Mensa going back to its roots.
These novellas are kind of directed towards Dr. Mensa, so it's going to be interesting to see what the next one is, and if Dr. Mensa is the one that we're supposed to be directing that one to, or who the reader is intended to be.
Right. I know. It's so interesting. And maybe it's not for anyone anymore. Maybe it's just for Murderbot now.
Murderbot's like,
yeah, I enjoyed telling Dr. Mensa the story, so I'm going to keep track of myself.
Right.
I can't wait to see.
I know. I'm excited.
I'm so excited, guys. And make sure
the next one is Exit Strategy.
Yes, make sure you're following along with us for book or novella 4 of the Murderbot Diaries. Exit Strategy.
Exit Strategy. And then there's Network Effect.
Yes.
Which is the full-length novel.
And that'll be the first full-length novel, I believe. And all of the Murderbot Diaries. There's only 6 out right now, with one to come out soon. I'm sure we'll cover that immediately when it comes out. But just so you know, guys, like we'll probably break up the novel in 2 parts just to make it easier on
the plot of it. Yeah.
But
so that'll be like a 3.
Yeah, that'll be a 3-weeker.
A 3-week series on that one.
Yes, but the next one will be 2 weeks, and then we'll have a 3-weeker, and then I believe
another 2-week.
Another 2-week. Okay.
Yeah, because there's Network Effect.
Or no, Fugitive Telemetry.
Fugitive Telemetry.
So
we've got 3 more Murderbots to cover, and then
I thought Exit Strategy was the novella, and Network
Exit Strategy is a novella. Network Effect is a full-length novel, and then we're back to another novella with Fugitive Telemetry.
And then System Collapse comes out in November, so you will have a break with us there, but can't wait to read it. So we have all those. So make sure you are keeping up and getting those books now so you can continue to follow along. And then, guys, we'll have to start gearing up for another indie mission really soon.
Yeah. Get ready, people.
Get ready. Woot, woot. We're very excited for that.
And get the Greenbone Saga, because that will be our next full series that we're doing.
And follow us on Patreon to hear all about Teen Beach Movie.
Teen Beach Movie.
Oh, wow. It's going to be great.
Right.
Bring out your inner Tanner. Cool.
Who said that? Me. Just now.
Me. Just now. I could go, but chicks dig low better. And then make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Guys, rating, really reviewing, and subscribing is huge. We appreciate every single rating we've gotten. You can do it on iTunes, and you can do it on Spotify, and just like go on and give it a little 5-star rating. As long as you have a login on some of those, it's really helpful.
And if you can just share one of our posts or tell a friend, even word of mouth. It all
retweet,
helps.
Share it into your Instagram stories. It's all awesome. And you can find all of those things to retweet or share in your Instagram stories at Our Pod. That's OWWR Pod. We are on there. We are on Hive, and you could email us any of your feedback at ourpod@gmail.com. It's so great when we
also have a Discord.
We have a Discord. We're pretty active on there. We review books. We are reviewing TV shows. We're doing our best there. We're hoping to gear up when Hannah gets back from her work trip this week. And she's hoping to be a little bit more online presence in the next couple weeks. So,
I mean, it's winter. We're all tired.
We're all trying to hibernate. Hannah just wants a clean apartment, guys.
It's dark, and we are tired of being only exposed to blue light.
Oh my gosh, so much blue light. I do have a sunrise clock, and it is magnificent. I will not lie.
I am jealous. I have to wait for the sunrise.
With the normal sunlight at 7:30 in the morning. No, I love my sunrise clock. It also plays like campfire music.
Nice.
To the point where my boyfriend, when he first started staying over, was like, "Are those like your crickets are really loud outside?" And I was like, "That is campfire music."
Turns on a little kumbaya.
Yeah, it's just like a little roasting fireplace that then takes me into a nice meditation to sleep app that takes me into rainwater. So, gotta have all of those.
I like the rainwater. That's nice.
I know, it's really nice. And then that stays on until my alarm clock goes off the next day. But it's too much blue light still, guys. You gotta soak up the sun.
Give us a little time, and we'll get back to it.
Laura has some great reviews that I will be posting on Our Pod at ourpod.com. So you can follow us there for some more long form reviews. And really,
thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And join us next week for book 4 of the Murderbot Diaries.
Exit strategy.
Bye.
Bye.